Hello everyone, welcome back to another pre-recorded video here at the Internet Hockey channel. In today's video, we're looking back at the 20 game standings marks. I know it's a little bit late for this, but I am going to be looking at what the standings looked like at the 20 game mark and how some of these teams could be shaping up going for the rest of the season. We'll do all that coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the Internet Hockey channel. Now before we begin this video, don't forget to like this video and subscribe below. Thank you all your support with neighbors with love you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below and don't forget to comment down in the comment section below something else in this video. So welcome back to another pre-recorded video here. This is coming at some point in the holiday break, but we do have an interesting video here discussing how the standings look like at the 20 game mark. So I've done some research, I've looked at it historically. So from last year back until the 2013-2014 season, excluding the COVID shortened and COVID postponed season. Besides those two seasons, if you look at back historically, usually about 12.8 of the 16 teams who are in a playoff spot at the 20 game mark wind up making it to the playoffs. So very likely chance that a lot of these teams who are in a playoff spot will hold on to it for the rest of the regular season. Also, teams who are above 25 points come the 20 game mark also usually wind up making the playoffs. About 86.6% over the last 9 years have made the playoffs. That's an average of about 10 teams being at the 25 plus point mark at the 20 game mark, and usually about 8.6 on average wind up making it. So there's a very likely chance that teams who are above 25 plus points will wind up making the playoffs. And then teams who are sub 20 points, so below 500 at the 20 game mark, usually don't wind up making the playoffs. There's an average of about 8.1 teams to be below 500 come the 20 game mark. Usually only one of those 8 teams on average will wind up making the playoffs, about 12.3%. So some interesting stats there. Usually if you're in a playoff spot, or if you have 25 plus points at the 20 game mark, you usually wind up making it, but if you have sub 20, you usually wind up missing. So here's what the standings look like at the 20 game mark this year. So at the 20 game mark, we saw Vegas lead the Pacific Division with 26 points in 20 game mark. The Canucks had 25 points at the 20 game mark. The Flames had 25 points at the 20 game mark, and the Kings had 23 points at the 20 game mark, with the Oilers who had 22 points, Kraken who had 21 points, Ducks who had 19, and Sharks who had 16, all out of a playoff spots. You had the Winnipeg Jets at 34 points, being in a playoff spot. You had the Minnesota Wild at 30 points, being in a playoff spot. You had Dallas Stars at 26 points, being in a playoff spot, and the Avalanche at 22 points in a playoff spot, with Utah at 19, St. Louis at 17, and Chicago and Nashville both at 15, all out of a playoff spot. That was what the West looked like. In the East, you had Carolina with 29 points, Washington with 27 points, Jersey with 26 points, and the Rangers with 25 points, all in a playoff spot at the 20 game mark, with the Jackets at 20, Islanders at 19, Flyers at 18, and Penguins at 17, all out of a playoff spot. And then you had Toronto 26 points, Florida 25 points, Tampa 24 points, and Buffalo 21 points, all in a playoff spot at the 20 game mark, with Boston at 19, Detroit at 18, Ottawa at 17, and Montreal at 16 at the 20 game mark. So if you look at all of this, if you look at the stats, so teams who are in a playoff spot, that is Toronto, Florida, Tampa, Buffalo in the Atlantic, Carolina, Washington, New Jersey, New York are in the Metro, Colorado, Dallas, Minnesota, Winnipeg in the Central, and Calgary, LA, Vancouver, and Vegas in the Pacific would all be making it at the 20 game mark. Now, like I said, there's an average of about 12 to 13 teams who are in a playoff spot wind up making it at the end of the season. So maybe 3 or 4 of them do wind up missing who are in a playoff spot at the 20 game mark, but very likely chance that most of those teams wind up making the playoffs. Also, if you look at the teams who are 25 points or above, the Florida Panthers are at the 25 point mark, the Toronto Maple Leafs were at 26 points, the Rangers were at 25, the Devils were at 26, the Caps were 27, the Canes were at 29, the Dallas Stars were at 26, the Minnesota Wild were at 30, the Winnipeg Jets were at 34, the Flames were at 25, the Canucks were at 25, and the Knights were at 26. So you saw 12 teams who were above 25 points at the 20 game mark. So most likely you'll see 9 or 10 of them wind up making the playoffs. There's a very likely chance that a few of them, we've already seen the Rangers take a big step back. Calgary's not guaranteed playoff team at this point in time. So there's a chance a couple of those teams could wind up falling off of it. But I think there's a very likely chance most of those teams who are 25 points or above at the 20 game mark will wind up making it. When it comes to the sub 500 record, there's a ton of teams here, quite a bit more than usual. You had Anaheim at 19, San Jose at 16, Utah at 19, St. Louis at 17, Chicago and Nashville both at 15, you had the Islanders at 19, you had the Flyers at 18, you had the Penguins at 17, you had the Red Wings at 18, you had the Bruins at 19, you had the Sens at 17, you had the Habs at 16. So you had 7 of the 8 teams who would be eligible playoff spot in the East sub 500. That's stunning. And you also had 6 of the 8 teams who have missed the playoff spot in the West under 500. So that's some really surprising things to see 13 teams sub 500 at the 20 game mark. Now, we've already seen teams like Pittsburgh go on a complete tear. We've seen Ottawa heat up a little bit recently. Boston, especially since the coaching changes done well. Utah's back above 500. So there are teams that you will see that are going to be challenging and maybe even make a playoff spot. I could say 2 or 3 of those teams who are sub 500 at the 20 game mark wind up making it eventually, but you're not going to see a whole bunch of them, like teams like San Jose, Chicago, Nashville. They're not going to get in, and even some of these teams who are in a playoff race might wind up falling short on the playoff spot. So interesting note there. Now I do have a couple of interesting notes when it comes to specific teams at the 20 game mark this year. So just a couple of teams who are interesting. This is the 4th time in 6 years for Vegas at the 20 game mark in a full 82 game season that they've led the Pacific Division. So the Knights seem to be doing really good at leading the Pacific Division at the 20 game mark. San Jose for the 3rd straight years under 500 at the 20 game mark, so that's bad news there for the Sharks. Anaheim for the 4th out of the last 5 years, at full 82 game seasons that is, are under the 500 mark, so that's bad news there. This is the best start in Minnesota Wild and Winnipeg Jets history at the 20 game mark. So the Jets, during the tenure after being relocated from Atlanta, have never had this good of a start in Minnesota since coming in as an expansion team back in the early 2000s, has never had this good of a start. So these are historic starts for both the Jets and the Wild. For the Predators, this is the worst start for their franchise since the 02-03 season when they had 12 points. So this is an historically bad start for the Nashville Predators. This is also the worst start for the Pittsburgh Penguins since the 03-04 season when they had 15 points. So it's been an extremely long period of time before the Penguins have had this bad of a start. For Toronto, this is the 6th time in a row they've been in a playoff spot, the 20 game mark in a full 82 game season. And for Tampa, it's the 7th straight time. So really good stuff there for those 2 teams. Well, this is the first time Boston's under 500 since the 05-06 season at the 20 game mark. So teams like Boston, Nashville, Pittsburgh, Anaheim, it's not looking good for them at the 20 game mark. While teams like Vegas, Minnesota, Winnipeg, and Toronto are all doing really good at 20 game marks. Definitely, that's the 20 game mark standings. I left you guys thoughts. Do you put any stack into the 20 game mark standings? Do you think it really means something for a lot of teams to be higher or lower at the 20 game mark? Do you think it's an indication of who will wind up making the playoffs, or do you think it's just a useless stat? Definitely. I left you guys thoughts on all of this down in the comment section below. That's all I want to talk about for today. Until this video, if you'd like to subscribe down below. Thank you all your support. We're never to 1,000 of you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget the subscribe button down below. Don't forget to comment down in the comment section below so something else discuss in today's video. Also a blog talking about news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that. So check that out. I've linked down in the description below. And can't wait to see you guys all for next video. See you guys soon.